Welcome to another episode of, I'm telling you, it's becoming one of the most popular shows in Southern California. It's called Ask Brien, Brien, and it's a jam-packed show today. We've got a full house in the studio. Brien Johnson, maybe one of the smartest business executives and mentors and coaches in the country. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, Brien.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, big show today.
We switched our time.
Yeah, we did. And you can see the Ask Brien logo if you go to the fabulous news brief on KHTS. Sign up, call in, 298-5487. We're going to waive the fee today, so you can call in for free. Also with us in the studio is the fabulous Lindsay McCoy. Why is she here? Because she gives us a perspective that two old guys just don't have, Lindsay.
Which, these two old guys? What about me?
You're old. And our first guest is a dear friend of mine. I got to make a disclaimer. His name is Carl Goldman. And Carl is part owner, I have to say part because the other part's listening, part owner of KHTS. And it's hard to get him, trust me. It's the first time he's been on the show. We're going to be talking about... Second? Has he been on before?
He has been.
Yeah, you quizzed me already.
Oh, really? I have to first of all congratulate you. We just won the #1 community radio show in the state of California, so congratulations. Don't turn the channel, because if you own a business, a lemonade stand, anything having to do with the business, maybe you got a grandson, granddaughter, somebody's in college, they want to get into business. This is the 1 hour you want to listen to every week. Ask Brien, Brien. So let's get started. Brien,
how come every week you always ask about a lemonade stand? Are you like big in the lemonade business?
I'm telling you what, summer's coming pretty soon, and somebody's going to be clever enough to open up a lemonade stand right here on Main Street in Ventura. Going to make a fortune, trust me, a fortune.
Is lemonade...
Maybe Carl and I are...
What about smoothies?
Well, we're going to open up a little restaurant right next door, a little coffee shop. And are we going to serve lemonade? Yes, we are, aren't we?
Only if you're mixing.
I'll mix it. All right, you got a million questions for Mr. Carl. Start. Let's get going. Come on.
Okay, so Carl, my question is, what is your greatest challenge as a business owner on a daily basis? Not a weekly, not monthly, on a daily basis.
A daily basis has to be staff. No question about it, and motivating, keeping the staff focused, motivating the staff, taking on a leadership role and continuing to lead and learning from my mistakes. I think those are the biggest challenges. And in this era, we touched upon this the last time I was here. This generation, this millennial generation, is a very, very different. They do business differently, and as a leader, it takes some adjusting to switch gears and be able to communicate and lead for the millennial generation.
So give me an example when you say they do it differently.
Boy, they just about every category is done differently. So this generation, I think, grew up, and we were part of it. They're my kids. They grew up with all the awards and everything there. So the expectations are very different. This generation, when I was in my 20s, the one thing I was striving for was a house and a car and a family, and I don't think that's a priority of any of our staff in terms of their top priorities. This generation, I think, wants to work a good 8-hour day, and then they've put in their work, and then it's time to go move on to the next thing. That was not true for my generation at all.
So what kind of programs can you put in place to incentivize them?
Ping pong tables, pool tables, wine and beer bar. But, Carl, you're making a good point. You and I, similar age, we worked our butt off. The work ethic was different. These young kids want more life balance. They want more time off. They're willing to work hard. They're hard workers.
Absolutely.
They're really hard workers, and they're smart. I mean, they're really smart. They get to the meat of the subject a lot faster than we do, but they want life balance. They want to enjoy their life. So it gets a little challenging as how we fit all that in. Am I right on that?
Absolutely. And they multitask. They're doing 3-4 things at once. I'm watching Aaron right now over here doing 3 or 4 things multitasking. I could never have done that. I would have been focused on, I need to focus on one thing, do it, and then move on to the next. So it's a totally different mindset now. They've got access to any piece of information they want. They have access to, and we don't necessarily have all the answers. There aren't necessarily right answers coming from us all the time, and so it's a two-way learning process.
Yeah, well said. Lindsay McCoy, you are a millennial. And I like what Carl just said. You're listening to KHTS 1220 AM, California's #1 community radio station. Incidentally, we have, talking about millennials, we have a radio app, Lindsay. It is the best, I'm not kidding you, I've been on hundreds of radio stations, best radio app in the country. Just go to your app store. I have a
bunch of friends listening right now.
Right now. Download the app. Go to the app store. You can do it while you're listening to us. Go to the app store, AM 1220 AM, and listen to our great show. We really get great guests every week. Now, Lindsay McCoy, based on what Carl said, and I agree with them, access to information. In our generation, we had to go to the encyclopedias. I don't know where we got our stuff, Carl. Do you think there's a trust situation between the millennials and everybody else?
I do. I think we need to understand where we're getting the information from, because not everything on the internet you can rely on. And so you need to do some thorough research. I think we're trying to find a happy medium with our employees, trying to keep them busy, but yet not too bored. And the information out there is very important, because this is the foundation of, this is what you're relying on, and this is how you're presenting your company. So you need to be you need to be reputable.
So as a millennial, what would be the most important incentive that Carl could give you to make you work harder?
Well, I think the ping pong and the beer bar and all that stuff would be helpful.
Beer pong or ping pong?
The beer and the ping pong, at the same time.
Actually, for me, I would prefer a gym membership. I think to keep me going in the morning and to keep me healthy, which a lot of companies are doing. So
they really are, and they're putting in. They really are putting in the gyms. They want their employees to really be healthy. And they're putting in cafeterias.
Right. I hear Google is one of the best companies for this. They offer everything.
And healthy food as well.
Absolutely.
Depends on what you think is healthy food. I still like a great pizza.
Yeah, they even have the laundromat at Google, so you could be doing your laundry and your work at the same time.
Yeah, I think they want you to live there.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
That's exactly what they want. But it's more of a holistic approach, don't you think? Now that you want to feel part of the whole. You want to feel like you're making a contribution, and you don't want to feel like you're boxed into just one area. So I think part of our challenge as an owner of a business is to embrace employees, embrace the millennials, to really have them understand the entire mission of the company, understand all areas of the company, and look at the company more holistically than just from that one particular area that's your specialty.
Right, absolutely. I mean, you're only good as your employees, right? So you have to make them happy. They have to be excited to work for you. You have to share the vision. I think all those things are very important. So, yeah, you have to keep the employees. I think it's important to have them do a couple things, but not too many things. And that's all. That's it.
It's interesting, Lindsay, what you said. Create that culture, that excitement, that I want to come to work. It sounds like a plug. It's not, but KHTS Radio does that. You have happy employees here. Incidentally, we're trying to get a couple of interns. So if you know somebody that wants to intern,
I'll send them your way.
Yeah, absolutely. What a great way to start a young career. That's how Aaron started a year ago, and now he's got a full-time job. He does a great job. So, Brien Johnson, talk to us a little bit, and I want to get Carl's feedback on
I do have a
Ask
question,
Brien.
though, for Carl, if you don't mind.
You do want to ask a question? I'm curious about Ask Brien, but go ahead.
I'll get into that.
All right.
So my question is, when I was young, I had the same ideals that a lot of, I believe, the millennials had. And every generation, when they're younger, they have this ideal, hey, listen, why do I have to go through this process? Why do I need to work 80 hours a week before I'm, the CFO, et cetera? So I think that's always been around. So how is it different with this generation?
I think it gets down to balance. And this generation, when 5 o'clock hits, this generation wants to be out the door and doing their next activity, whatever that is. So they've created a much better balance in their lives than I believe my generation did, where we were just focused on work, and whatever it took to work our way up the ladder, we were going to do it and forget the balance. And I think we suffered for it. This generation, I believe, it has a much healthier balance because of it.
Ron?
Well, it's an interesting subject for me because I think if you love what you do, you're not watching your clock. I mean, it's a sore subject with me. I don't want to get into it today, but if you really love what you do, the time passes quickly. And you're not, Carl, I've never figured out how they know it's exactly 5 o'clock. So do you start watching?
They look at the clock.
Well, I mean, are you looking at your watch at 10 to 5 and count? It's a sore subject. I don't want to get into it today. I want to ask you, Brien Johnson, about Ask Brien and get Carl's feedback. Why did you start Ask Brien, and what is the concept behind AskBrien.com? BRIEN.
So there are many people out there that don't have a location or a place to go if they need to get a business question answered. They can call their friends, they can call people up, but they don't want everybody to know their personal life story. If you have a financial issue, you certainly don't want to tell your friend, hey, gee, where can I go to get some money? So there's that one element of that. There's another element, and the other element is not everybody can afford a coach or a consultant out there, so there's no real place. Ask Brien, what Ask Brien does is provides business resources. So it does ask and answer business questions, but it provides business resources for business people to go, so when business people have a problem of any sort, that they can try to find the answer, mainly through questions and answers, but also through resources such as ebooks and other resources that we're building on the site. And this is a continuation. This is not something that's, okay, we're done. This is a site that's continually growing and continually adding on more resources and more information to help solve business problems and be the business solver for people. That's what Ask Brien's all about.
Yeah, it's interesting because I own a business, and I'm not going to come to you or Carl or Lindsay and ask you intimate questions about my business, and maybe I don't want to spend $500 an hour to go to an attorney. So this is a great opportunity. If you own a business out there, ask those questions you're not going to ask your wife, you're not going to ask your friends, and you have true experts on the site.
Yes, we have many experts and contributors. Even people that have been on the show have become contributors as well, because they see there's a need out there, and they're trying to help the community, help people out, and that's the goal, helping people out, but mainly exclusively for businesses.
Last week we had Rachel on, who is really, she's a contributor, a mentor, a coach to Fortune 500 companies. To have her part of Ask Brien is a huge get for you.
That is correct. She became a contributor this past week, and we're happy to have her on board, and we're happy to have her answering questions for us, and that's the kind of caliber of people that we're looking for. But again, the whole goal is to try to help business people that have business problems solve their business issues.
Coming up here on our what we call our Block B is a gentleman that's owned a business, Carl, in this town for 42 years, and I'm so curious.
And it's not you?
No, I've been in business for 37 years, but not in this town. But Carl, you've been in KHTS, been around, and you and Jerry have run this thing for a long time too. How do you get through the ups and downs? I'm going to ask Doug that. You guys have had your ups and downs. It's got to be incredibly challenging because you have no parachute, do you?
Yeah, no, there's no parachute. And we've been here 27 years, and I know Doug Green, he's been in that furniture business. We've gone through two major housing crises here in Santa Clarita in the 27 years I've been here that have significantly impacted the radio station, because housing here is predominantly the drive for a lot of the economy in Santa Clarita and the growth that's happened here. So, and we're dependent on advertising. So we had to tighten our belts a couple of times during that. And no one knew that the ride was going to be as long as it was. Those were tough times. We watched many of our peers, many businesses go under during that time. It was a sad period.
Yeah. I'm curious, Lindsay, you're in the real estate industry. How do you keep your spirit up? And I'm going to get back to Carl and Brien on the same question because
She's always happy.
Well, hopefully-
you're blessed.
Hopefully you're gifted enough to transition with the markets. When it goes down, there's a lot of short sales and bank, foreclosures. So that's a huge market. Where when it goes down, there's always what do you call it?
You can adjust and come into a different
Right. There's always an
product.
opportunity.
There is an opportunity, but there's also a weeding out period. What we saw here with both times the housing market crashed here, we saw there were an abundance of realtors and mortgage brokers, and the good ones stuck it out. They managed to stay and
Absolutely.
thrive during that time. But for everyone who was thriving, there were probably 10 that were out of a job.
What
Right.
trait do you think they had that made them survive?
I think they did a number of things. Number one, they continued to market even during the downtime, and that was a key factor for a lot of them. Just like you can't shut off the electricity, you can't shut off your promotion and your marketing.
So perseverance.
Perseverance. They pulled up their sleeves and worked harder. We saw that here. We worked twice as hard during that time, and it's just a question.
Brien, it's a great question. Let me, because we have thousands of listeners to KHTS 1220 AM. You're listening to the show called Ask Brien, BRIEN.com. It's a great site. I want to go back to Brian's question because it's a good one. So if working hard was the only answer, every dishwasher would be a multimillionaire. Every waitress would be a billionaire. So there has to be more than working hard. There has to be something about your spirit, something you've read. Lindsay, you've been up and down the real estate.
I think it's working smart. I think it's just working smart. Like you said, you can work hard, but it's about working smart, making the right decisions, being in the right place, having connections. I think it's a number of things.
Interesting. Networking. Here's the genius right here, Carl. You
I thought that was Lindsay.
Carl Goldman is the owner, ladies and gentlemen. He's our very special guest. You are a networking genius, and people underestimate just what Lindsay said. If you are connected with people, it's got to help.
Absolutely. Well, networking is an important part of it, and and also having a brand is an important part of it. So it goes back to the marketing we talked about, but making sure your brand is consistent and there and able to handle the bumps and the hills and the valleys that take place over time, regardless of whether the economy is good or bad. There are always going to be hills and valleys in every business. So it's being able to handle that. It's making sure you have a good core of employees as well who are going to stick it out and also, carry on.
So you got to hire right, is
you
what
have to hire right and inspire right. Hire and inspire.
Besides employees that you've mentioned quite a bit here, I have to imagine there are other issues and other problems that business owners are suffering, not just having great employees. I mean, that is obviously one of the factors that you must have. But what else besides having a great staff is going to make your business successful?
Well, make your business successful, or what are the challenges? Challenges out here in California, certainly regulations are one of the key challenges, and we can spend an entire show on
shows.
Yeah, just doing business in California and what that looks like, and we'll save that for another time. And some of the things, some of the laws and regulations that are coming around the corner are even crazier. But that's a totally different subject. I think.
We're going to have you back on that. You just got back from Sacramento, and we haven't discussed that trip yet, but you got to have come back.
I would like to hear that one answer. If you can.
You got 1 minute.
1 minute to answer the other part of this. I think the other part of the challenge is to stay current and stay up with the technology is so profound and changing so rapidly, and whether it's how to market yourself out there, how to message yourself, what are the landmines with social media, which changes every single day. That's a whole other subject, and that can be another show as well. But I think the new technology, no question, is one of the things that makes it easier for us in a lot of ways, but also makes it tougher and requires a lot more work, a lot more thinking, and a lot more risk.
Yeah, no kidding. You're and it's a risk listening to the show because you might learn something. Think about that. Listen to KHTS 1220 AM, AskBrien.com. Cheap plug for my profession. I'm a business coach, Coach Ron Tunick, but you have one too, Mr. Carl. And I would say if you're listening out there, get a mentor. Get a life coach, get a business coach, get one that'll be honest with you, and then go to AskBrien.com and get those tricky questions that you don't want to ask anybody else answered. We'll be right back with another very special. Remember, 42 years he's been in this Santa Clarita Valley. My first question is, how the heck have you survived 42 years? Carl Goldman, you've got to come back. And when you come back next time, let's discuss Sacramento. Did you learn anything? What are the regulations? Blah, blah, blah. We got to find out how these regulations are affecting us in California.
You got it, Coach.
All right, pal.
Thanks,
All right,
Carl.
we'll be right back on AskBrien.com on KHTS 1220 AM. Be right. Don't you go anywhere. Don't you dare turn that channel.